As sightings in our skies stack up, one lawmaker now wants these whistleblowers back on Capitol Hill. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna heading up the task force on declassification and transparency. She says that includes UAPs. And just days ago, she shared she's hoping to get Grush and Elizondo, as well as officials from the Pentagon's UAP investigation office, together. The group could meet in a sensitive compartmented information facility that's also known as a SCIF to share what is known. And for more, we are joined by NewsNation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart. Ross, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure, Natasha. Good evening.
Is this game-changing? Because Congresswoman Luna wants to hear more from these key figures who, by the way, you have spoken on, you have brought to NewsNation, like David Grush, like Luis Elizondo. Talk to us about getting these whistleblowers into a SCIF. What will that be able to reveal that hasn't been revealed before?
Well, frankly, I have to be honest with you, Natasha, and say it's not worth a hill of beans unless the committee that Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna leads, or rather the task force that she leads, is given the resources and the powers to do its job. At the moment, they're still trying to figure out whether or not they can get the security classifications of David Grush, for example, restored so that David can give evidence inside that SCIF, knowing that he's not breaching any national security obligations. One of the problems we've got at the moment is we've been promised a lot by the new administration, and we should hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they are leading and honouring those obligations. But the simple fact is, at the moment, Anna Paulina Luna's task force, it's a 6-month task force. She's pledged to look at not just UAPs, but also investigate the assassination of JFK and the release of those files, organise the release of the Epstein files, investigate Martin Luther King and RFK's murders as well. And frankly, I don't think there's much chance of her doing that within the 6-month period. She doesn't even have the powers of subpoena. They have to come from the actual Oversight and Accountability Committee Chairman, James Comer. So a lot of people, myself included, are getting increasingly sceptical that the administration is promising a lot to get a quick headline, but are they actually going to follow through and give the well-motivated and well-intentioned Congresswoman Luna the powers she needs? Just this week, to make my point, she had to actually publicly tweet out to the new Attorney General that the Department of Justice was failing to respond to her task force's request for access to files. And she was resorted to actually having to publicly tweet her frustration to Pam Bondi, the new Attorney General, that essentially they're not getting a response from the Department of Justice. So a lot of talk, a lot of jaw, but are we going to see any action? I think we're entitled to be sceptical.
I hear that skepticism loud and clear, and you are not alone in this, Ross. With the time we have, I do want to get to some exclusive testimony that you heard in the very latest episode of the Reality Check podcast. An underwater explorer describing a strange circular structure on the floor of the Baltic Sea appearing to look like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Let's take a listen together.
It's 60 meters. And for me and Peter and all the other crew members, we have never, ever seen anything big like that.
Yeah, apparently measuring just under 200 feet. So tell us more about what's being called the Baltic Sea Anomaly.
What's exciting about this object, and this is what Dennis Asberg, a well-known underwater explorer, tells me in this edition of Reality Check, is it's not just that it's a solid object. It's the fact that it's an object that appears to show signs from the scans that they've done of human cutting. Somebody's manipulated that object and cut shapes into it. There are square-shaped edges, exact 90-degree angles. There are etches that look like squares leading into some kind of doorway. So there is a suggestion that this object is somehow some kind of constructed object. Nobody's saying it's a spaceship. Mr. Asberg is not saying that. He's never said that, and he's been mocked for ever, a lot of people have tried to debunk him for suggesting that, which he never did. What is a possibility, I think, is that this is something that has fallen from the orbit, or more importantly, maybe it's something that was there before the Baltic Sea filled in, which would be very interesting, Natasha, because the last time the Baltic Sea was empty was about 15,000 years ago, well before known human civilization.
Very interesting. Ross Coulthart, as always, illuminating. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.